This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where business owners share their wisdom. It's short and to the point because we respect people's time and because we know transforming possibility leads to real results and it happens fast. So let's get to it. Question number 1. David, tell me who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I like to answer this question by not with what I do, but what I believe, because I feel like for people to understand me, it's important for them to understand what I believe. And I believe that a way that a company grows is that when the people that make it up grow, that helps the company grow. And it's a journey and it takes leadership. And so it takes humility and really an understanding of human potential. And I believe that where business leaders also believe that, that's where they're going to get the most out of their people and also the most growth out of their company.
Love it. And I know you personally to be one of those leaders who walks the talk. So I love hearing you say that. So thank you. Question number 2. What's the best thing, David, about being in business?
Oh, gosh. There's so many, but the best thing I think is the freedom. And we were talking before we went on air, just to be able to, like for me, the ability to be location independent, to be able to do my business from anywhere. Right now, I've been doing my business right here in my office. But there's been a time when I could travel and I could do my work from really, and I've done it actually literally driving down the highway. My wife was driving. But coaching calls, doing live events like this from anywhere. So I think that's the best thing about being in business, especially from my perspective, because I love the freedom. I love to be able to set my own schedule and then be able to make an impact with organizations and people everywhere.
Love it. Couldn't love that more. Freedom comes up a lot with entrepreneurs, and I love hearing that every time. Excellent. And we were just talking about that and why I'm here in Florida and how that happened. So for those of the tribe that knows, freedom is beautiful. Thanks, David. Question number 3. We hear, and even during this time, because I like to say this, and there's no secret about what we're going through and this being unprecedented times, but in the digital space, it's huge. We hear from other business owners that right now they're getting so much business that the chaos is sometimes causing overwhelm. I know that's a spot that you know a lot about. Tell me your thoughts about that, David.
Yeah, I think so. The really important thing about fighting overwhelm is systems and processes, standard operating procedures, having those put in place. I was a pilot. I technically still am, just haven't flown for a little while. And everything we did was via checklist. And so even to this day, I mean, I have a checklist for my startup ritual, my end of day shutdown ritual. And I think that having those kinds of things in place are really what will help you to alleviate that overwhelm. And also it gives you a sense of direction. And so that you're not just all scattered. So having those standard operating procedures, having checklists, and then quite frankly, a lot of times there's times when you have to outsource some things. I mean, I outsource my bookkeeping. Like I don't have to do that anymore. And so it's awesome to be able to do that. So I would say to fight the overwhelm, outsource anywhere you can that's not in your sweet spot, and then have SOPs and checklists. That's kind of my mantra.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love that you said checklists and not just SOPs. That gives a little bit more pictorial view. Like a franchise has A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like, I love that. And I know that to be true about you. Thanks for sharing that. You're already dropping the wisdom and we didn't get to number 5 yet.
Hey, how about that?
Question number 4. What other successful business owners, like yourself, of course, David, should be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
Wow. So probably the first one that comes to my mind, if she hasn't already, is Dr. Kimberly Hambrick. I don't know if she's been on the show yet or not, but she is an amazing woman and she's an amazing business owner. I would highly recommend Kimberly Hambrick.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I remember meeting her at like a long time ago, and she's not been on. So thank you.
Awesome.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Virtually, meaning her
Yes,
virtually.
right,
Like,
right,
I love that.
right.
Awesome. Love this freedom, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's get to the crux of this, David, because I know you and I could chat forever about this business space. What piece of wisdom would you share with other business
Mm. Yeah, so I guess really the biggest piece of wisdom I would say is the most important competitive advantage and the most sustainable competitive advantage that any business has is their people and their culture, and really how their people interact is what makes up a culture. And so I would say that if you are intentional with developing your culture and come at it with a perspective of looking at behaviors, not just creating the mission, vision, and values. Those are important. Don't get me wrong there, but there's a difference between values and behaviors, and it's how our people interact with each other. It's how our people interact with customers, interact with vendors, and so I take that the approach of helping organizations to look at what those behaviors are that are fundamental to their success. Things like honoring commitments or speaking straight and listening generously. Creating those statements, those behavior statements are super important to define your culture. So I'm a huge culture advocate, and I love to be able to help organizations to create those behaviors. So my suggestion to every business owner is to be intentional with their culture and be intentional with investing in their people, because when their people are growing, then the business is going to grow, because growth just happens when those things are in place. So that I think is probably my biggest advice for any business owner.
Absolutely love it. You have been the first and only one that has actually directly talked about culture, and I would have been a little bit shocked if David McGlennen didn't talk
Didn't say
about
something.
culture.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I love about you. And if I remember correctly, you have like an exact 7-step process. I know you customize for different companies, but
Yep.
you have a process that you have proven years and years and years. I remember you
Yep.
exposing. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. It's
pretty
a
powerful.
8-step framework, and the first one is to define your culture in terms of behavior.
Yeah, awesome. I encourage people to reach out to you and get in touch with you about that because it's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah. Thank
Let's
you.
switch gears, David. We could talk about business all the time, but we talked about freedom and like we
Mhm.
work to live, not live to work, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Absolutely.
what's the most fun vacation you've ever had? I'd love to hear
Ah,
about that.
yeah. So the most fun that I've ever had on vacation was one that I went with. So I call it we call it our free dog trip, and it's a bunch of guys, and we go do things that usually involve adrenaline, usually involve physical activity, and so a trip I went on not too long ago. Gosh, I think I guess it's been 4 years ago. We did two things, and it all related to a mountain. The first one was we traversed this cliff, and it was called a Via Ferrata, so the Way of the Irons. Essentially, what we were doing is we were traversing this cliff. We were about 700 feet above the valley floor. We were harnessed in, but on these iron bars, and this traversing, from one end to the other. That was like super outside my comfort zone. I hate heights. I mean, I'm not into, heights when you're just like, if I let go, I'm in trouble here kind of a thing. So that was one of the activities. The second activity that we did the next day is we summited a 14er in 14,000 foot mountain in Colorado. And it was so amazing because I thought that I was in shape, but when you add the altitude to the mix, I mean, you really are having to, kind of walk step after step. And there's so many leadership lessons and so many business lessons that I learned from being out in nature and actually having that difficult but yet fun experience. It was amazing. First time in my life where I've ever actually looked down at a rainbow. So when we summited, there was a rainbow that was kind of going on down below in the valley, super fun. So I love adventure, and that was one that I will never forget.
I love it. I've heard some of your Ironman stories, and I've seen
Yeah,
some stuff on social media. We talked about stuff, but I love that story. Thanks for sharing that with us.
of course,
And
my
in
pleasure.
4 years, you're about due for another one, and I
I
want to end
definitely do. I'm
it
definitely
because
do. Yeah, my
I am
oldest daughter.
totally adrenaline junkie myself. You know that, so I
Oh,
love
I
it.
know, I know. My oldest daughter is getting married, so after that happens, then we're off.
Nice, nice. I love it. David, thanks for being on. I always love sharing time with you every time we connect. What's the website or social media, or what's the best way when somebody hears this and they're like, man, I got to reach out to that guy? How can they get in
Yeah,
touch with you?
sure. I guess probably the best way is on LinkedIn. That's the social media that I really am on mostly. Feel free to check out my website, davidmcglennon.com. I've got some info there. But yeah, davidmcglennon.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Love it. Thank you so much, David. This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where business owners making, it's not about how much money they make. It's more about them sharing their wisdom globally and creating impact. Thanks for joining us.